the Kingpin, and you're listening to the Air Raid Hour, a Buffalo Fanatics video experience.
Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to the Air Raid Hour. My name is Steve Mathis. You can find me on Twitter at Judge Mathis, joined as always by my co-host Dave Tilton. You can find him on Twitter at Tilt Money. And before we even get started today, I just got one thing to say. Tyron Johnson. How about Matt Milano? Jordan Poyer, Micah Hyde. And last but not least, the young guns, Gregory Rousseau, AJ Epinesa. All right, I think we might have lost Logan in that ordeal, but I am ready, ladies and gentlemen, for the Air Raid Hour. The Buffalo Bills beat down on the Miami Dolphins in South Beach in front of a home crowd in South Beach. According to Matt Millen calling the game, it was 90% Bills fans. I don't know if his math is correct there, even though he seems like a mathematician the way he was dropping some vocabulary during that broadcast. And I don't know. They took some pictures of the crowd after the Miami Dolphins fans skewered out, and there were a lot of Bills fans, but I think some of the upper deck people might have moved down to the lower deck. But the Buffalo Bills win 35-0. There is a lot to talk about this evening. Welcome in, everybody. In a second, I'm going to have Dave read off everyone who's in the chat with us tonight. But before he does that, and while he does that, I also want you guys to bump this into the chat. Summarize where you're at with this football team right now. 1-1, 35-0 win. The defense is looking lights out, top 5 in the league, looking like they're back to their 2019 form. But the offense is struggling a little bit. So while Dave lets us know who's in here, summarize for us in the chat how you're feeling about where this football team's at right now.
Yeah, and we're glad you guys are joining us on a Monday, a victory Monday. Ombre Lob was in here at least 40 minutes early, so we know he was in there. Richard Rush was in early. King Thriller, Jessica Tennis. I wonder if she's been playing some tennis at Prestonwood lately. Jessica, let us know. Harold Fuller, Logan, although Logan may be gone now after all that creed you were playing. Brian Bowers is in the house. Barbarous Sloth. We got CR, Andrew, Todd Ross. We've got Elliot Eisler, a regular, Randy, of course, Jacob Ander, Chris Janke, 743 Lockdoer, I guess. James FX90 is back, and others. So the people are filing in, and it's always a little
better on a
always
victory
a little
Monday.
easier. It's always a little easier to file in on a victory Monday, isn't it?
Yeah, we got Logan coming in saying, "Oh, what? Josh went 50%. Okay, did it matter? No. Let's bring it with his defense." PJ coming in saying AJ Epinesa was electric. BFLO Mafia News, I'm with you. He says looking forward to a clinic these next 2 weeks, because I believe in his next one he said looking forward to a downgrade in competition. Harold Fuller says on to the football team. CR says the Bills are trending in the right direction, offense included. And then Randy coming in saying we have a run of games coming where we should go 6-1 or better. Brian Bauer says Josh better get his shit together. That's how I'm feeling. But I texted you last night, and I want to make a point of emphasis tonight. I don't want to talk about the offense to start. Why? Because they don't deserve it. I want to talk about this defense. I think too many times last year, or even in years previous, we were so enthralled with Josh Allen and his development and all this stuff that we didn't, especially in 2019, didn't take the time out to appreciate the defense. So I really want to go ahead and I want to give this Buffalo Bills defense a shout out. And I want to start the show today about this defense that allowed less than 350 passing yards and has allowed only one passing touchdown the last 2 games. A team that has allowed 0 rushing touchdowns and only 146 yards over the last 2 games. A group that had 6 sacks, an interception, a forced fumble, and made the Miami Dolphins go 0-4 on 4th down. Plus
9 tackles for loss.
To boot, to boot, they got themselves a shutout. And I want to start the conversation with probably the hottest name in Bills Mafia. And no, I'm not going to play some Creed clips here, but I'm going to pull up some clips of our man Tyron Johnson here. Why? Because Tyron Johnson had himself a day. First of all, he started the football game by getting a sack. First play of the game, Tyron Johnson, nickel blitz, sacking Tua. Then you see him coming in on this forced fumble by Matt Milano. He actually got credited with the forced fumble, even though I think it was a little bit more of Matt Milano. But it was a nice tackle right at the sticks, trying to prevent Miami from getting that first down, and Matt Milano then forced a turnover. And then you saw a 4th and 2 right here, where he absolutely just truck sticked Preston Williams to prevent him from getting the first down. He's been our best. I think he's been the best Buffalo Bills player through 2 games. Is that fact? Or is that fiction that he's been the best Buffalo Bill through 2 games? Let us know in the comment section what you think too. I think he's been the best Buffalo Bill through 2 games.
That's an interesting one, right? Because if you say if you take the 2 games collectively, he's right near the top, right? And I think what we're gonna see here is this argument of who's been the best Buffalo Bill player through 2 games. What are we talking about? The first part of this show, it's the defense, right? Like it's someone on the defense. You could make a case maybe for Trey White. You can make a case maybe for Matt Milano. Even Greg Rousseau, you can make a case. But Tyron Johnson's right up there. PJ says it right here. Tyron Johnson's playing to get paid. Out of all those clips he played, obviously I love the sack on the first play of the game. But that last one, the 4th down stick, that was my favorite one because that really was the one that kind of sealed it for the Bills. I mean, the Dolphins were there in their own territory. He comes up and makes the hit. Harold Fuller says Milano. I kind of lean towards Milano or maybe even AJ Epinesa, but the fact of the matter is it's someone on the defense. And I think we can probably all agree on that. Everyone's been naming defensive players, which is great.
Yeah.
But he's right up there, man. You could definitely make the case for him.
Jordan Poyer called him the best nickel corner in the National Football League. Obviously a little bias there from Jordan Poyer, but when Jordan Poyer makes a statement like that, you listen, and you could tell the respect that the veteran guys in that secondary, Micah Hyde, Trey White, Jordan Poyer, have for that guy. I think it was in the press conference. Matt Perino was like, he wanted to ask a question about Tyron Johnson to Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer, who were doing their press conference together. And all Matthew Perino said was Tyron Johnson. He didn't even get to finish his question. And Jordan Poyer just cut him off and immediately said best nickel corner in the National Football League. Our guy over at the 585 Report, Sports Rock, after that 4th and 2 stop, had one of my favorite tweets of the day, said, Tyron Johnson's 190 pounds of fuck you, which was one of my favorite tweets of the day. I mean, he had an opening sack. He was in on that Matt Milano forced fumble. I think he even statistically in the box score got credit for it. He had that 4th and 2 stuff, four tackles, a sack, a forced fumble. Dude was an absolute force. He's all off season. My take was, he had those 2 big interceptions, but he also started off last season slow. He was the butt of every joke to start the season, but then he made some really clutch plays. But even though he made some clutch plays, was his whole game in totality worth a contract extension? Sean McDermott, being the defensive back guru that he is, or he thinks he is, might feel like he can draft a guy and develop another guy in the nickel like he did with Tyron Johnson, so you don't have to pay him. As Tremaine Edmonds' contract comes up, you just paid Josh Allen. There are players that need to be paid. But if you look at this roster, with AJ Epinesa and Groot coming on, Boogie Basham hopefully will take that AJ Epinesa development route and be ready soon, giving you that trifecta of 3 young DNs under contract for quite a long time at a reasonable cap number. Could you see the Buffalo Bills giving Tyron Johnson that contract extension? And would you like to see it before we even get to the offseason?
Well, it's funny. I'll just make the counter argument that he started out slow, obviously, last season, and obviously it's only been 2 games this season. So what I would say is I like how he's trending.
Mhm.
But let's see, like, if he gets through the first half of the season and this play continues, then I think you start thinking about giving him some kind of contract extension. Now, it's not like Bean to do something like that during the season, but you're right. If we start talking about Tyron Johnson puts up a Pro Bowl caliber year, even if he doesn't make it, which the chances are of him making it
Mhm.
maybe not that great, even if he doesn't. If he has a Pro Bowl caliber year, continues to make the splash plays, key takeaways at key moments, and shows a little more consistency from play to play, it's going to be tough for the Bills to just let him walk
Mhm.
out the door, given what he's meant for this team. And to be honest with you, kind of a forgotten guy in the secondary, because we talk about Trey White a lot, we talk about the safeties a lot. The CB2 has always been a topic of conversation for us. We don't really talk about Tyron Johnson
Mhm.
a ton, if you think about it. So I like how he's trending right now. If he continues to trend this way, it's going to be one of those situations, maybe like a Milano last year, where
Mhm.
you say, how good is he and how important is he to this defense? And that kind of would maybe dictate the value the
Yeah.
Bills are going to put on him. So maybe a little too early, but
Mhm.
trending obviously in a great direction right now.
Logan comes in and says, I want your guys' take on Levi Wallace. Is he CB2 worthy? Levi Wallace is interesting. He's an interesting character, right? He had that really nice play early in the game. And then, spoiler alert, he got that taunting penalty.
Stop, yo. You keep using this word jabroni, and it's awesome.
NFL refs, man, absolute fucking jabronis. That the montage of taunting penalties that we have seen this week, utter stupidity, utter absolute stupidity from the National Football League. But what else is new? But then he comes back and he makes up for it with that interception.
Yep.
Then a couple of plays later, he starts cramping up. Dane Jackson comes into the football game. My notes on Dane Jackson: he looked competent, more physical in coverage than Levi, more aggressive at the line of scrimmage. He had that 4th and 2 stop. Fact or fiction? Was Levi benched in this game? Or were his cramps that bad that he couldn't come back into the football game? Buffalo Bills also worked out Quentin Dunbar, a corner, today.
No, I don't think he was benched. I think it was obviously the heat, the cramps. And Sean McDermott made an interesting comment today, said something, it was like irritation, which I thought was an interesting choice of words to describe Levi Wallace's injury. So when I hear that, I feel like there's maybe a little bit more to it than cramps. Is there like some kind of soft tissue situation going on when it was just an interesting choice of words. That's all I'm going to say. I'm not trying to diagnose what his injury is or even guess what it is. But when Sean McDermott says he's had a little irritation, that to me seems more than just cramps. And we'll see. Like you said, they worked out Quentin Dunbar. Are you really going to work out a guy in week 2 if you weren't a little bit concerned about the Levi Wallace situation? PJ comes in and says, Levi Wallace had a nice comeback game, needed to step it up from last. Look, we know he gets picked on because Trey White's on the other side. He's going to get balls thrown his way. It doesn't matter who the CB2 is. That's going to happen. And I mean, I thought he pretty much held his own. I mean, he had the taunting penalty, which was, like you said, jabronis of the week, the officiating. But I don't think it was a benching. I really don't.
Speaking of, I got to play this clip again.
Stop, you though. You keep using this word jabroni, and it's awesome.
We need to have a conversation about Trey White and NFL officiating. Last week, Trey White was called for a hold that was in no universe a hold.
Yeah.
This week, once again, Trey White was called for a hold in what in no universe would be anyone's right mind would be considered a hold. This is 2 weeks in a row. The National Football League refs have been absolute jabronis and disrespected one of the best corners in the game. You don't see star players like Trey White getting disrespected by the officials like Trey White is getting disrespected, and it needs to stop. If I'm Sean McDermott, I'm giving a call to the National Football League front offices today and asking the question, why is my star player getting disrespected like this? Because this is 2 weeks in a row where a non-penalty is just out of the blue called a penalty for no goddamn reason. Later on in this football game, you saw Xavier Howard getting treated like an NFL All-Pro. Josh Allen intentionally threw a ball short to Stephon Diggs to try to draw that pass interference penalty.
Should have been.
And it should have been. Xavier Howard never turned his head. If that was Levi Wallace on the receiving end of that, there would have been a flag.
Absolutely.
But because it was Xavier Howard, the NFL officials gave him the benefit of the doubt and did not throw the flag. And the Buffalo Bills didn't get a free first down out of it. I don't disagree with what the NFL officials did. It's Xavier Howard. Respect the man. But if you're going to respect that man, you better respect the man on our side who's just as good in Trey White. It's absolutely despicable that you don't see all pros getting these calls against them. It's disgusting. What are your thoughts on this? Because I'm baffled by it.
I was annoyed, but I was trying to not let it bother me given how the kind of game was going. I was like, I'm not going to let this ruin my day. But let me just say this, in a different situation, in a tighter game, if we're going against the Chiefs or someone like that, or God forbid it's in the playoffs, that is going to be a tough pill to swallow. And we know Bills fans in general always feel like the calls go against them. I'm not trying to generalize each individual person in here watching. I'm not saying it's you or you or you. I'm just saying over the course of time, during the drought, during all these years of struggle, the mindset or the mantra kind of has always felt like the calls always go against the Bills, right? That's just kind of how that's been part of the drought mindset, part of the non-playoff team mindset is like the calls go against them. Now they are a good team. Now they are a playoff team, and they have some star power, and they're still kind of not getting the same treatment. I get it, but until it really affects the outcome of a game, I'm going to let Sean McDermott do what you said. Call the NFL offices now, right after the game's over, like early in the season where it didn't affect the outcome, to just get in their ear a little bit. Because then maybe like week 7, week 8 down the road where you're in a game against the Chiefs or whoever, then maybe they go back and remember like that phone call that they got from Sean McDermott, and he was proactive enough to call him. It does him more good to do it now ahead of time before it's going to affect the outcome of the game than it does to call after the fact and be like, what the hell was going on? So, and honestly, I don't even know what the protocols are. Like if a head coach can just call up the NFL officiating. I have no idea.
You can call for
to put you on hold, right?
And things like of that nature. I mean, I'm sure it's been done. I'm sure there are like, I'm trying to fix our background here because it's a little off and I put it in the wrong spot. But we got a super chat here. Could you pull up this super chat that we have from Logan?
I can't because
you don't have the special powers anymore. We got a super chat here from Logan. You mind reading that for me?
Yeah, he says, did Allen's contract mess with his mind and his arm, or do you expect him to rebound? Are we moving on to?
It's a super chat, so we will move on to the offense, but we're going to come back to the defense. The 15 minutes moratorium on the offense has passed, so I'll allow it.
Did mess with his mind and his arm, or do we expect him to rebound? I don't think it definitely didn't mess with his arm. It may have messed with his mind a little bit, but I thought Bruce. Everyone loves Bruce on Twitter, Bruce Nolan. I think he made a great point. But when he said, for all the people who are making excuses for Allen, it's not that. For all the people saying that he's been great, it's not that either, right? It's somewhere in between. We can't make an excuse for him on every single throw, on every single play, but we also can't totally bury the guy and say that he's like not going to be an all-pro or not going to be an MVP caliber type player. Like it's legitimately somewhere in between. It's been 2 games this year. The people on the one side are going to say, well, we put going against 2 great defenses. The people on the other side are going to say, oh, he's been terrible. But it's honestly, it's somewhere in between. He hasn't been great. There's no way to say he hasn't, but he also has gone against good defenses. So it is somewhere in between. The truth is always in the middle, as we know. So
yeah, we got Ombre Lob coming in saying we spoke Miami and the Allen Warriors need to stop. I think Clay Troya hit the nail on the head. We were talking with Clay in the BF family chat, and Allen's game right now, you see a mix of and Justin Walker coming in saying he needs to be a game manager. He can be an elite game manager. Just stop. Like, no offense. This dude can make throws that 3 people in the National Football League can make. I really hope he is being sarcastic with that, because this is a guy who was runner-up for National Football League MVP this year, and when he's playing at his best is an MVP quarterback. He ain't no game manager. could circumstances, like he's in a rut or whatever, make him be a game manager for a few weeks here or there while he gets his rhythm back? Sure. But if he's a game manager, you don't pay a game manager $250 million. And the crowd noise thing, like, I'm just not buying that yet either. Like, give me 10, 15 weeks before I'm even considering the crowd noise or anything of that nature. But you see a mix of the classic Josh Allen dimes, right? The Emmanuel Sanders throw was beautiful. Leading up to that one touchdown. You had the Stephon Diggs touchdown, which, like, literally every commentator in the National Football League is just in awe of, saying, like, Josh Allen's the only one who could do that. It's like Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, maybe Aaron Rodgers. Then you get the throw to Stephon Diggs on that, like, 3rd and 4 or whatever, where he's scrambling out, then goes across his body, and Stephon Diggs moves, and they pick up that first down. Yeah. And then that throw to Dawson Knox. Very few quarterbacks in the National Football League can make that throw. So he is making some absolute dimes, and you're seeing classic Josh Allen. But he's also missing a ton. And you saw in the first game, he missed Sanders deep. And then this game, where was he missing guys? He was missing them short. So what Clay was telling us, and Clay has played the quarterback position before, that, like, he's just in his own head right now. When he's throwing the football, he's not thinking about how confident he is, and he's not thinking about his trust in his arm or the throw. He's thinking, am I going to do this right? Right? Like, if he's throwing a deep ball, at first he's like, oh shit, did I throw it too far? I need to take a little bit off. Next game, if he comes in and he starts throwing it over people's heads, he's overcompensating for what he did before. So Allen just needs to settle down. And I do think circumstances have made it tough the last 2 weeks to do this. Get in a rhythm, right? Get your confidence up, because you have the Pittsburgh Steelers ragdolling your offensive line. It's tough to get into a rhythm, to get your confidence back, to get that flow going. You're playing up against that Miami defense that's absolutely blanketing you in coverage, and your receivers aren't even getting open for the most part until the second half. You're going to have trouble getting into a rhythm. So I think circumstances have kept the Buffalo Bills offense from getting into a rhythm. And I think that that's something that, where against Washington or against Houston, we got to find that rhythm. And as he finds that rhythm, I think we'll start to see the Josh Allen of old come back in those flashes. And again, like, Fiecum, I love your name, but sorry, I'm calling bullshit on that. I'm just calling bullshit on the crowd noise. Like, you have no proof. No one has any proof that the crowd noise is affecting Josh Allen's game. None whatsoever. If you can give me a tangible piece of evidence that tells me that Josh Allen is not playing well because the crowd is too loud, fine. But no one has been able to provide me a tangible piece of evidence to prove that. I don't know. What are your thoughts on the crowd noise argument?
It's a non-argument to me. It's a non-starter argument to me. I mean, it's not even something that crosses my mind when I think about Josh Allen's play. Like, it seems like a trendy thing to talk about, but I don't see how it has any effect on his play. I mean, is it possibly having an effect on his adrenaline? Maybe him getting a little juiced up in that first game with the home crowd. Like, okay, but that's before the game even starts. Once the game starts and you get back into, you take that first hit or you make that first throw, like, your home crowd's just there. Like, they're not deafening you. Miami's home crowd was non-existent, right? Like, it was mostly Bills fans. So I don't buy into the crowd noise thing. And I don't think, like you said, and I also honestly don't know how you would prove it unless you take a huge sample size of games and you start measuring things like crowd level decibel noises and his, completion percentage and things like that, and certain levels of decibel. Like, it just, I don't know, man. It doesn't hold water for me right now.
Yeah. I mean, I looked last year, I looked at Josh Allen's games last year. He went into games last year, and he had some games last year, 4-game stretches from Tennessee to New England, where his statistics weren't overwhelmingly good. He got out of that rut. I mean, I had this conversation with Clay Troya last year. A lot of people want to put it on the injuries, and a lot of people want to put it on, like, the guess, and that's fine. But I had a conversation with Clay Troya last year before the Kansas City game. He's like, listen, the Tennessee Titans figured Josh Allen out, and it took the Buffalo Bills a good 3-4 weeks to get back on track, their offense to get back on track and get stabilized and start rolling again. And then sure enough, they started rolling again. The Arizona game where we lost on the Hail Murray, his statistics weren't that pretty. Like they were just average run of the mill stats. Come back from the bye week, his statistics against the Los Angeles Chargers weren't anything special. He was sort of in a rut those two games as well. The offense bounced back and went on a huge run. I mean, I think if we watched other teams as much as we watch the Buffalo Bills, if we were invested in other teams as much as we're invested in the Buffalo Bills, I think we would notice other elite quarterbacks in the National Football League go through ruts and have bad games. I mean, we were here.
I mean, it's happened in 2 weeks already. Like, look at Aaron Rodgers in week 1, and they're struggling again tonight a little bit. Now it's tied, but they're, the Lions are giving him everything they can handle. Look at Jameis Winston. He was the freaking belle of the NFL after 1 week, and then he fell on his face against the Panthers yesterday. So it's one of those things like you said, he'll get into a rhythm eventually. Now, if that doesn't come, then we can have a conversation, right? Against some, questionable secondaries coming up here in the next couple of games. Then we can start having that conversation when the sample size gets a little bigger in 2021, right? At this point, we can use 2020 as a benchmark, but we really can't stop going back to 2020 and doing that. Like we gotta really focus on this season, what's ahead of us. Chase Manzella comes in with the super chat. Thank you, Chase. Says, I would like to see Breida worked into this offense more. We need to keep Moss and Singletary healthy. You got some vindication, obviously, with Moss being active and getting the 2 TDs. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the running backs in this game, obviously Devin Singletary led the game with that huge 46-yard run that you're seeing on the screen here now. 13 carries, 82 yards, 6.3 yards per carry, had the touchdown. A lot of that came on that big first run. Then Zach Moss came into the game. He had this run that you're about to see right here where he was bowling over people. Looked like the Pac-12 player of the year. The guy that I saw on tape in college that I love so much. Then he has that fumble and you think his day's over. But Sean McDermott said, listen, I wanted to give this kid some vindication. And oh boy, did he get his vindication again. Looking like vintage Travis Henry out there in the 20 jersey, just lowering the boom on people and picking up those tough yards on the goal line. Zach Moss, 8 carries for 26 yards, 3.3 yards per carry, 2 touchdowns. Like I said, taking absolute bodies out there with Zach Moss. And then you also want to talk about improving Devin Singletary, 4.66 guy at the NFL Combine. Clocked in at 20.29 miles per hour on the next gen stats on that touchdown run, showing a lot of burst, the fastest time play of his career. So you're seeing a lot of development out of those 2 running backs. I don't know if the way this offense is schemed, you need another running back. I don't know if you need to take the pressure off the running back. Devin Singletary had 13 carries. Zach Moss had 8. What pressure do you need to take off of them? Wow. Like I question Matt Breida being active this week. And quite frankly, I question Matt Breida's roster spot. Because I don't think if we cut him, he's being signed anywhere. I think we could probably sign him to our practice squad, or he can be sitting on the street waiting for us anytime we want him. You saw the Baltimore Ravens go out and sign Devontae Freeman and Latavius Murray off the street. You can do that with running back. I don't understand why Matt Breida needs to be here. This week, I think it was fine because you had the extra roster spot. But I mean, these 2 guys, Devin Singletary and Zach Moss, these are your bell cows. And I absolutely love, a couple people have mentioned this, Devin Singletary to start the game, Zach Moss in to give the final blow, the knockout blow. It seems to be a formula that has worked for the Buffalo Bills pretty well in the 2 years these 2 guys have been here. Yeah.
And I mean, look, we saw last year in the Monday night game against the Niners, right? Zach Moss had that fumble deep in the Bills' own territory, and McDermott benched him the rest of the game. He didn't play the rest of the game, as far as I recall. And that was him as a rookie. This year, he fumbles. McDermott gives him another chance. So there is a little bit of maybe coaching evolution there for McDermott with the young guys, like letting them kind of work through their mistakes. Because to be honest with you, what do you hear most from like announcers, coaches, right? They want to give that guy, the ones that they trust, right? They want to give that guy his chance as soon as he can after he he turns the ball over, right? A lot of them do that. They don't want to mentally damage the guy further by just benching him the rest of the game so he's just stewing on that fumble. all the way into next week. Get him back out there, get him that confidence. And I think part of the reason why he did that, because he knows he needs Zach Moss this year, maybe more so than he even did last year, the way things have gone so far. So Justin says, I think we need to just put the running game on tape to keep defenses honest.
I think this comment right here is spot on. It was Eric Turner from Cover One posted this morning some still shots of that Devin Singletary touchdown. 6 defensive backs on the field. 6. You know, if defenses are going to disrespect you like that, you better be able to run the ball down their throats. And the Buffalo Bills ran the ball down their throats on this play. The more quality runs you can put on tape, the more Devin Singletary can break off those big runs, the more that Zach Moss can body people and get himself into the end zone. The more of that you put on tape, the less you're going to see the disrespect of 6-man secondaries. The less disrespect you're going to see. So I think Justin Walker is spot on in that comment. Get those plays out there on tape. Make the defenses respect you before the game starts so that offense can get into a rhythm in the passing game early on and not wait and have to prove themselves in the run game before they have to bring out like the extra linebacker or whatever. Because that's what happened in this game. That's happened in the Pittsburgh game, right? Like, all right, we're just going to bring out all our, we're going to bring out all our DBs. You have to do it to us before we're going to bring out some bigger bodies on the field. We don't respect you enough from what we see on tape to do this from the start of the game. And that's why the passing game gets off of the rhythm and the Buffalo Bills have to move over to transition to that run game. So I think they put up some good tape against the Miami Dolphins team, and I hope it continues, and I hope we get a little bit more respect so this offense can get back into a rhythm.
Yeah, I mean, that's the key, right? If the other team doesn't respect your running game at all, they're just going to keep putting 6 DBs out there. It's almost like, I think Matt Millen might have even said this, or someone said this, like when the Bills played the Chiefs last year. I think Ryan Sullivan might have said it in our family chat. 6 DBs last year. Chiefs dared the Chiefs to run. And what did they do? They ran it down our throats the entire game, and we didn't change. We never got out of that scheme. The Bills, they have to do what the Chiefs did to the Bills last year. When they see that defenses are setting up that way, just keep running it. I mean, we've seen the Patriots with Tom Brady and amazing receivers over the years. They've run the ball in times like 50 times a game because the defense was just like giving them the runs. And Belichick is not too proud to just run the ball every single time. Like, there is a pride factor here too, I think, right? The Bills want to be known as a prolific passing offense, which they were last year. Is there a pride factor here in saying, like, okay, we don't care that you have 6 DBs out there. We're still going to try to throw the ball because that's what we are and that's our bread and butter. But sometimes you really just gotta take advantage of the personnel that's on the field and take advantage of the matchup. So they did a much better job of that this week, obviously.
Yeah. Last thing to mention here on the offense before we transition back to the defense. I mean, literally the last thing in my notes here is Dawson Knox hasn't dropped the ball all year. Look pretty competent.
And he's made a couple tough catches. I mean, that touchdown was not an easy catch. It was you know what it kind of reminded me of? It wasn't quite the flair of that Stephon Diggs touchdown against the Patriots last year. If you remember when he threw across his body.
Had shades of it though. You're right.
It had shades of it. It was like a watered down version of the Stephon Diggs touchdown against the Pats, where he kind of threw across his body a little bit, and Knox, dove down and made the catch in the dirt. So good for Knox, man. I mean, these first 2 games, even though it hasn't been a ton of volume for him, he's done everything we've asked him to do, everything the Bills have asked him to do, and I got to think his confidence is feeling pretty good right now, which is great for him.
Yeah, we got to – I want to finish up the conversation on the secondary here because we've touched on Trey, we've touched on Levi and Dane, we've touched on Tyron Johnson, but, I mean, the safeties had a heck of a game as well. Micah Hyde coming in, you could see him coming in here second play of the game, getting a sack. The first 2 plays of the game, or 2 of the first couple of plays of the game, were sacks from our defensive backs. And then obviously Levi Wallace with the interception. Micah Hyde had some clutch stops on 3rd down right before Tyron Johnson's 4th down stop. I mean, Hyde had that sack. He had that big 3rd down stop. Poyer, Hyde, the linebacking core in totality, they were really good at taking guys down at first contact. We talked ad nauseum on the pregame show. Myles Gaskin in space, Jalen Waddle in space, Jakeem Grant in space, Albert Wilson in space. They're going to do some damage on these dump offs. And the Buffalo Bills made damn sure that they weren't going to get those yards after catch. And
Mm-hmm.
a big reason why Miami could never get anything going is because the Buffalo Bills were making tackles at first contact and limiting that yards after catch. So just kudos to just another shout out to Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer for doing that. And also, again, Cover One pointed this out. Eric Turner pointed this out this morning. The Buffalo Bills game plan to start. Takeaway 2 is first read. They were using the safety to double up on the guy that they knew Tua was going to be looking at. And Tua had to go move off to a first read to a second read. And by the time he did that, the pass rush was there waiting for him. So what a great game plan by Leslie Frazier and Sean McDermott. And what a value it is to have those two guys in the middle of your defense leading the way and executing that game plan. I mean, just that was as close to a perfect game as you're going to get from a defense, right? Like in baseball, is that a no-hitter or a perfect game? Probably a no-hitter. Maybe it's a perfect game. I don't know. If this was baseball, was that a perfect game or a no-hitter for you?
I mean, it was a no-hitter. I wouldn't say it was a perfect game, but it was maybe a no-hitter.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe he only had one walk. Maybe he only had one walk in there, and that's it. Your boy Lettuce comes in with the super chat. Thank you, sir. We have a defense where we can play complementary football. Dable and Allen seemed like they were hell-bent on winning MVP in the first month. Let's play sound situational football and quit forcing to Sanders.
It does seem like they're trying to force the ball to Emmanuel Sanders a little bit.
Maybe.
We don't have Kendall with us tonight, but we have him in spirit. And I also have one of his tweets here. Your boy Lettuce, what you're saying, I think Kendall really mirrored in one of his tweets. And this is something that really stuck out to me post-game. Kendall tweeting, my main criticism with how the team was built last year was that the Bills needed Allen to play at an MVP level to win games. Through the first 2 games, it's evident that this 2021 Bills team can win games even if Allen is off his game. I think that was a spot on assessment from Kendall there. And I think that's exactly what you're seeing from the Buffalo Bills in these first couple of games. Now, losing that Steelers game stings. It stings.
Mm-hmm.
But this is a defense that if our offense can get back on track, this is a recipe for a Super Bowl. This is a defense that can shut down Patrick Mahomes. The defense we've seen the first 2 weeks can go toe-to-toe with the Kansas City Chiefs, can go toe-to-toe with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. What they are showing us is that they can compete with the big dog offenses of this league. Or at least they can, I take it back. They haven't shown they compete with the big dog offenses league because they haven't faced a big dog offense, but they've shown they can take bad offenses and completely fucking neuter them.
Mm-hmm.
They neutered the Pittsburgh Steelers. It was penalties that got them back into the game. And a lot of poor officiating. They neutered Tua Tagovailoa and the Miami Dolphins. These 2 offenses did nothing. 322 total yards through 2 games passing, 1 touchdown. Teams are averaging 161 yards a game on us first 2 weeks in the air. They're averaging yards a game on the ground. That's nothing. We've given up 1 touchdown in 2 weeks.
Let's start by giving a lot of credit to the revamped defensive line. I mean, It starts with them. We obviously seen what Rousseau has done. Star being back, it's been well documented today on social media how he got triple teamed a couple times. Addison's playing fresher this year. Ed Oliver's playing well. Epinessa's obviously taken a huge step in these first 2 games compared to last year. And you're still getting the same solid contributions that you really would always expect from Jerry. So the defensive line, the new look defensive line has been great. The tackling has been better. Fewer missed tackles. That was the one gripe we kind of always had with this defense. Even when they were really good, the one gripe we kind of always had was the missed tackling, and you haven't seen that as much this year. And obviously the pass rush, especially in this last game, is starting to get home a little bit. And what's the most encouraging thing to me is it's getting home with guys like Epinesa and Rousseau. Now, Epinesa, obviously from a box score perspective, didn't have a ton, but if you watch the game and you watch how he affected the game, the 8-9 pressures or whatever he had, Randy saying Rousseau's drawing some doubles as well, you have to be really excited about this defensive line. And the other thing about it is you look at that and you say, this is exactly how Tampa Bay handled Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs in the Super Bowl last year. So like you said, if this offense catches up, you just hope it's one of those situations where both of these units can get aligned and be good at the same time. And we talked about that a lot in the
Mhm.
offseason. If the defense can even get back to somewhat of a form it was in from 2019, you're talking about a Super Bowl contender. And so let's hope that offense comes back. Your boy led us with another super chat, says this defense can counter all, but the most perfect of offenses. I'm not afraid of the Browns run game like I was before Sunday.
That defensive
It's
line
a
has a
great
lot to
point.
do with it.
Fresh bodies all the
Mhm.
time coming in.
I
Star
I mean,
back.
looking at this defensive line, first of all, I'm going to pat myself on the back. I said that Greg Rousseau was going to have 2 sacks this game.
You sure did. You did.
He didn't have
You
the
did.
strip sack, but
I said
I said he wasn't. I don't get the full call because he didn't get the strip sack, but he would have had the strip sack if Tua played. He had the blind side Tua. He would have had the strip sack.
I'll give you that. You were right about it. You were right.
But let's talk about this. First of all, AJ Epinesa fucking owns Austin Jackson. Just destroyed him at Iowa when he in the bowl game when he was at USC and he was at Iowa. And then this game, just living in the man's nightmares. But AJ Epinesa flashing power and finesse. He knocks Tua out of the game. He had 9 quarterback pressures, according to Next Gen Stats, which is tied for most in the league this year with Max Crosby, and third most in the league since 2020. I mean, AJ Epinesa was an absolute monster this game. He forced Brissett into sacks from other people. He forced Brissett into bad throws. He forced Brissett to dump the ball off. I mean, AJ Epinesa was all over the football field. And, you know, a couple of people in the pre-draft process, remember Chris Collinsworth? He's like, man, that Gregory Rousseau, he gets those slappy sacks, right? Called him a slappy player because it doesn't look pretty, but he's just always there. And he's always around the quarterback to clean up and get the sack. Well, when you got AJ Epinesa at right end, putting the pressure on the quarterback and getting the quarterback maneuvering around the pocket, and Gregory Rousseau's there to clean up, I mean, this is a freaking tandem that could be very good for this football team for a long time. Rousseau with his 2 cleanup sacks showed a lot of power. As Randy mentioned, teams were doubling him. I'm at the point, right, where I wanted the Bills to just get off the field on offense because I wanted to watch our defense. I wanted to, like, at the end when Josh Allen ran for that touchdown, I'm like, just call it a touchdown. I want the defense back on the field. Like, that was literally my mindset watching the football game. Was I wanted to go see what AJ Epinesa would do next. I was having so much fun watching our defense just absolutely terrorize me. I've never had that feeling before. I dread when our defense is on the field. Even when our defense is good, I dread when our defense is on the field because you know at any second the other team could possibly get a big play to score a point. I wanted our defense on the field this whole game. I was just having a good time watching them. And before we get to Brian Bauer super chat here, I know it's week 2, but if AJ Epinesa and Gregory Rousseau as a tandem already proving to possibly be the go-to duo ahead of Mario Addison and Jerry Hughes?
Yes. I mean, they are the go-to duo right now. I think that the veterans will get a little motivation from that. You know, they Steve has a sick mind. I think that the vets will kind of take that to heart a little bit. You know, Addison and Hughes are not going to want these young guys to necessarily show them up. But so I think actually the way Epinesa and Rousseau been playing the first 2 games is only going to make it better for the entire defensive line, because then you have guys like Addison and Hughes kind of looking like, hey, these young guys are kind of like showing us up a little bit. Let's get out there and do our thing. And honestly, this could be just a line that's wreaking havoc all year. Brian Super Chat says, if AJ Epinesa's game yesterday didn't get your soldier to stand at attention, you need Viagra. That dude was an absolute terror. 6 to midnight, as I always say.
I didn't have a problem, Brian. I was cutting a hole in my pizza box as the game was playing. I was just cutting a hole in the pizza box, waiting for my wife to get home. That's how the defense got me revved up in this game. Look what you did, Brian.
Goodness.
Look what you did.
That's fantastic.
But speaking of the defensive line, I mean, just because we're talking about the ends doesn't mean that the interior shouldn't get some credit as well. Star Lotulelei was back. He had himself a good day. Vernon Butler. Listen, when we do the BF tailgate and we do segments such as the pregame inactives, I don't really have time to think about what I say. and just kind of just flying off the cup. I dropped a lot of F-bombs when I saw that Harrison Phillips was inactive over Vernon Butler. But hey, kudos to Sean McDermott, kudos to Leslie Frazier. Vernon Butler, I mean, he wasn't visible, but he was doing his job, eating up the blockers and letting those defensive ends and those edge rushers do their thing. Ed Oliver was in there on a couple plays, and man, Justin Zimmer, a couple people have mentioned Justin Zimmer here. The effort, the hustle, it's unbelievable. This guy, he was on the force fumble down the field. He was down the field on screenplays. He was finishing off some of the sacks there at the end. This dude, wherever the ball is, Justin Zimmer is. It's absolutely insane.
I mean, Zimmer, we know he's an athletic freak, right? A lot of people were putting clips about up on social media, some highlighting some of his plays from last year, and everyone remembers the Cam Newton fumble, but like there's these other plays where he just shows that athleticism, chasing down receivers, being one of the blockers in the picture on the Tyron Johnson pick 6 against the Ravens, and things like that. So the guy is a freak, athletic freak. And I mean, I think the Bills, one of the big topics of conversation we had in the off season was like, what are they going to do with this defensive line? Who are they going to keep? How many are they going to keep? I think they got it right with who they kept, right? I mean, I think we talked about how Butler was probably going to be on the team because of his cap situation, but never did we really think 11 defensive linemen was like really a high percentage play. And it turns out that was the right play. You see how fresh this line looks. You see the motivation that guys get playing off each other, the energy they get playing off each other. I mean, it's the right formula right now, at least 2 games in the season. It seems like they got it right.
Yeah. And just to clean things up here on the defensive line, a couple of people have made this comment already, and I'm totally for it. We've had this conversation for 2 weeks now on the pregame show where Boogie Basham has been inactive. And I've had this conversation with Alex Lucci, the thigh doctor. I've had this conversation with the panel. In the now, you're frustrated. Now it's like, maybe could have had a center or an offensive guard with our second round pick. Oh, we could have drafted an offensive lineman. We could have drafted a corner, this or that. Looking at AJ Epinesa and what AJ Epinesa has done over the course of a year, how he has recalibrated his body and the way he has come out this year, it's got to make you feel good that eventually Boogie Basham's going to get it right, because I don't know a single one of us. And Randy, I'm with you. I'm not frustrated at all. I don't think there's a single person here. Everyone knows how much into the draft we are here at the Air Raid Hour. There wasn't a single person in here who had a bad word to say about Boogie Basham during our 150 different draft shows. He was a Bills Mafia darling. And when reports never came out that we met with him, when reports came out that he was going to be a 5 technique and he was bulking up, we sort of slinked away from him. And then we took Gregory Rousseau in the first round and we're like, all right, the Boogie Basham dream is dead. And then sure enough, the Buffalo Bills get up there and draft Boogie Basham. Just go back to remember how excited you were when you were first guy in the draft and you saw those Boogie Basham highlights at Wake Forest. And now he came into training camp and you noticed all that baby fat and stuff on him, right? Like, he gets a year to get his body right. He gets a year to chisel himself down to 265, and he can get himself playing like AJ Epinesa and Gregory Rousseau, and you have the power end in Gregory Rousseau, and you have the speed to power guys in AJ Epinesa and Boogie Basham as your 3 defensive ends. Like, that's freaking scary. So my word is just be patient, be cautious. Don't let seeing Creed Humphrey starting for the Kansas City Chiefs, even though I believe he was taken before, and Asante Samuel, even though he was taken before, like lighting up for the Los Angeles Chargers. Don't let some things like that, even though I'm pretty sure both those players were taken before Buggy, bug you. And a couple people have mentioned that early Bruce Smith came into training camp not so lean and mean as he was when he ended his career. Bobby comes in and says that's true. He was Bill Mafia darling. Did anybody mock defensive end back-to-back rounds 1 and 2? But that's the way it fell. Right? Like, that's the way that the board fell. And, maybe we signed a guy like F.A. Obata. not thinking the board was going to fall that way. Maybe we restructured Mario Addison instead of cutting Mario Addison because we didn't know that the board was going to fall that way. So then there was just a clump of bodies there, a bunch of bodies there at the position. So I don't know. Linebackers. Tremaine Edmonds, Matt Milano, both had a really good game. I'm going to start with Matt Milano. We talked about it in the pregame show. We talked about it on Thursday show, the A-gap blitz, and you see it right there, right up the middle. Boom. Boom, right up the middle. Matt Milano wreaking havoc. He's sitting in there for recovering fumbles. He was going sideline to sideline. He was ensuring that players did not get any yards after the catch. He was blitzing off the edge as well as the A-gap. I mean, Matt Milano was just absolutely wreaking havoc, sideline to sideline. He's playing at an all-pro caliber level right now. Tremaine Edmonds, he had one miss on like the second drive where Gaskin ran for like 13 yards, where I'm like, dang, he didn't read that right. But everything else, he was sideline to sideline, take down at first contact. He was even used on the edge like a Bud Dupree on a couple of plays, which was really nice to see the Buffalo Bills mixing it up. He obviously left at halftime with cramps and did not return. Chances are, if that was a competitive football game, he probably could have returned. The Bills to be careful with that, but living up to the hype, living up to the draft stock, shuttle up early. And Matt Milano, man, not a single team in the National Football League up the Brinks trucks and convince him to get out of Buffalo, because I think by the end of the season, he could be one of the top 10 in the National League.
I mean, you showed the clips. The guy athletically, is he somehow even better than he's been the last couple of years? Like, he seems faster to me somehow. And they are using him in all different types of ways, whether it's coverage, whether it's rushing the passer in the A-gap, whether it's rushing the passer off the edge. Brian says, if you haven't been paying attention, Matt Milano can rush the passer on the low. And maybe this is something that they're going to start using more and more. We've seen it very situationally in the past couple of years. They really haven't used Milano a ton as a pass rusher, but now, and I think part of that is because they know how good he is in coverage and they didn't want to necessarily risk losing that coverage ability. But now that they see what he can bring as a pass rusher, if the Bills decide they want to, maybe rush 3 linemen, drop someone into the flat, and then have Milano come off the edge, like, they can do some really creative things knowing that Milano can rush the passer, and he's pretty effective at it. David Kane says Milano seems like he's in peak human form, and that's what I'm saying. The guy just looks like the ideal specimen you'd want as a football player. It doesn't matter what position. Like, just look at him. He can run. He's strong. He can cover. He can do it all. And he has earned not every penny that he's gotten that contract. He's earned more. And the fact that, like you said, he didn't get out of Buffalo, absolutely incredible. Pat Moran said that he thought Milano was the best player on the defense so far through 2 games. And that's kind of where I'm leaning as well. I think he's just been an absolute freak the first 2 weeks. And man, it's nice to see him healthy and playing well.
You got your boy Lettuce coming in saying Milano is low-key a top 20 linebacker in the league. Getting him back was Bean's best move. I mean, yeah. I mean, we all thought he was gone. Every single one of us were scouting linebackers. When we
signed Darrell Williams, I was like, that's it. Milano's done.
I think our first draft show was like top 5 linebacker prospects that can replace Matt Milano, because we were all convinced that this dude was gone. A couple people coming in saying that my internet is not that greatest tonight. I do apologize
for that.
It's
fine.
It's back. Going through some issues with my house right now. I guess the issues of being a homeowner. So the Wi-Fi is not that great. And even when I plug into the modem, it's not too hot right now. So still working out the kinks on that and hope to get that fixed soon. But power through. I think we're worth it. And Lone Wolf comes in and says, where was Gesicki? I mean, he had one drive where he caught like 2-3 passes. But other than that, Mike Gesicki was invisible. And kudos to the Bills, the great game plan. I mean, like I said, they took away.
We're fortunate Will Fuller didn't play. Let's not lie about that.
And but at the same time too, what a difference a pass rusher makes, right? We took away the first option, whether it was Tua, whether it was Brissett. We took away the first option. We made them have to read the field. Gesicki for them is hardly ever their first option. Despite the fact that Mike Gesicki is a good player, he's hardly ever their first option. And when you take the first option away, and The quarterback's got to scan the field and look for Gesicki to keep coming open over the middle of the football field. And your defensive ends are up the quarterback's ass. It's hard for the quarterback to find players like Mike Gesicki. So, I think Milano, Edmonds all played a huge role. I think the pass rusher played a huge role in that as well. All right. I mean, we're whittling it down here. The last thing I have on my list of things to talk about is everybody's favorite topic, and that is special teams. We saw this week Isaiah McKenzie, again, 2 straight weeks of a big return. He opened up in the first quarter with a big punt return. He's had no ball control issues early. I still think that AC joint is bothering him. I think that's a big reason why he's maybe not a bigger part of the offense. Matt Hawk, still a little long holding the football, but some solid punts. Tyler Bass, 5 for 5 on the extra points. He missed a 53-yarder. And then the Gunners on special teams, Tyron Jones and Saran Neal, showing exactly why they are elite. Saran Neal jolted Jalen Waddle after he was bobbling that ball. Saran Neal hit him. That's what forced Waddle to fully lose control of the football and for that ball to be on the ground. And then Tyron Jones was also there to get on top of it. So that just goes to show you the quality of having gunners like that. I don't know if those are any other 2 gunners, whether we recover that fumble on that punt. That was, I don't want to say it was a huge play in the game, but Miami was getting the ball back with a chance to possibly score before the half.
Terrible. Can we just pause real quick and say how terrible was that clock management by McDermott in that series of where
not as bad as David Culley's.
No, not as bad, but like getting the ball back, using your timeouts, and then running it like 3 straight times. Anyway, you're right, because at that time it was 14-0. You figure the Bills are getting the ball back on a punt. McDermott kind of botches the time clock management a little bit there, and you're like, oh crap, is Miami going to actually get somehow still get points out of this? And then they fumble the punt. So yeah, I mean, that was kind of a big play at the time because the Bills offense hadn't done much since very early in the game, and it was still only 14-0 at that point. So it was a pretty big play.
Yeah, and then Tyler Bass, like I said, he's been money on his extra points this year. He made his field goals last week. He missed that 53-yarder. It wasn't close. To me, first miss in 17, right? To me, the issue with Tyler Bass is not field goal. The issue is going to be how he responds. I want to see how he responds. I was a little upset that he didn't get a chance to kick another field goal in that game. He did get a chance to kick a whole bunch of extra points in that second half. He got to kick 3 of them, but he never got to kick another field goal. So it's going to be really interesting to see in again against Washington football team at home how he responds to that miss. So that's the one thing I'm going to be looking for on Tyler Bass. All right. So ladies and gentlemen, we are right at about the hour mark. So anything you guys want to talk about, we can stay on a little bit while longer, do some Q&A, whatever it is you guys want to talk about, we can talk about. While we're doing that, while you guys are getting any comments that you want to get in the comment section, make sure that you are turning into the Air Raid, a Buffalo football podcast. Yes, this video cast is available also in podcasting form on all major podcasting platforms. Type in Air Raid, a Buffalo football podcast, and you see this logo right here, left-handed Josh Allen. That is where you can find us on Spotify, Apple, Google, all of those major podcasting platforms. Every Tuesday and Friday, you can hear this show in audio-only form. If you want to listen to it on your car ride to work, you missed the show, etc. And Thursday mornings, you can catch the BF War Room with me and Randy Harmon. Every week, we break down the week that was in college football, talking about prospects that the Buffalo Bills could be considering. And we preview the week that will be in college football and give you some prospects to keep an eye out for. And that's going to be dropping every Thursday morning. I have been dropping on Wednesdays, but haven't told Randy yet. It's going to be dropping. It's going to be moving to Thursdays now. So every Thursday morning on Air Raid, a Buffalo football podcast on all major podcasting platforms. If you could, when you go and you click that subscribe button, if you're an Apple person, please give us a review. Help boost our name up on the podcast platforms, back up into the top 10 where we used to be before we started doing this whole video cast thing. We were a podcast before we were a video cast. We were pretty high up there on the Apple rankings, right there in the top 10 of the searches. So if you can go, you can give us a review. You can mention the Buffalo Bills in your review and give us a nice 5-star. We would truly appreciate that.
Let me ask you a question, because this whole time I thought that was right-handed Josh Allen, and the view was from looking
Oh,
at
is it a
him in
right-handed
the
Josh
front.
Allen?
Well, it depends on your perspective, and this is a very interesting
Okay. This is
question
a
for
great,
the
great
comment section. Depending on your perspective, because my perspective was always it was looking at him from the front, and it was his right arm over here looking at like as if he was facing you. But when you said left-handed, I was like, wait a minute, is that his back and he's throwing left-handed? So let's ask the comment section.
Oh no.
What is your perspective on this graphic? Does it look like Josh
Let's look right
Allen?
up again.
Do you see it? Do you see it as him with his left arm kind of tucked down and
Oh,
his right
you're
arm
not. It is a
throwing,
right. Yeah,
and
he's
it's
throwing forward,
facing
right?
you? Because or is that his back that's to you, and
No,
is
it's
it
his right.
throwing?
That's his right arm. I take it back. Whoever told me that the other day was an idiot.
Because the C is there, right? The C.
Yeah, I
So
take
there
it
you
back.
go.
I take it back. Thank you. Apologies. Your boy Lettuce coming in.
Well, you had me thinking.
Yeah, no, someone in the comment section was like, your Josh Allen's left-handed like 2 weeks ago, and ever since then it stuck with me. But your boy Lettuce comes in and says, do you think IMAC is progressing enough as a wide receiver to consider him as a potential slot number 1 for 2022? We might not keep Beasley. To me, he is the future. To me, I would make him the heir apparent in the slot to Cole Beasley. I think he's done enough for me in the preseason and in his and how he's looked in training camp. I think his to this season mostly just due to the fact that he's dealing with that AC joint sprain. But to me, Isaiah McKenzie is the heir apparent at the slot. I hope the Buffalo Bills re-sign him at some point this season to an extension.
At comment section, I thought he was right-handed. Just so you know, I had not even thought about it being left-handed until he
I'm
said
the
something.
idiot.
So
Someone in the comment
I
section
always thought it was right-handed. So don't lump me in with that. Anyway, yeah, could be the future. I agree. It's interesting though with like if you were planning or even thinking that he could be the future slot for you, why let him like sit out there in free agency and then only bring him back for 1 year? So maybe it was like, well, he can be a fallback option for us. Like we're still planning on having Cole Beasley here next year, right? But if it doesn't work out, then maybe we have an option. But Mckenzie's role so far and what he's done so far this year, I've been happy with it. Obviously, the special teams was the biggest thing that we needed him to bring to the table with Andre Roberts leaving, and a few interesting things with him in the backfield week 1, and hasn't really like done much with that. But just the Bills are willing to be a little bit creative. We saw it on defense. We talked a lot about defense with Milano on the edge and even Edmonds. If they're willing to be a little bit creative with their personnel, I like McKenzie's role and where it's headed.
Harold Fuller comes in and says, talk about the offensive line. That actually was in my notes. It was buried a little bit. The offensive line was meh this week. I think that would be the best description of it. They had some good series. They had John Feliciano, credit where credit's due on that Devin Singletary run, had a great block. He also had some series where he was not so hot. Same with the entire offensive line. You had some series where they were good, some series where they were bad. Darrell Williams had a couple of spurts where he wasn't looking so hot either. So I think part of the reason why the offense can't get its shit together this year is last year we couldn't run block to save our lives, but we could at least pass block. This year we can't do both, and it almost seems the offensive line is struggling a little bit. Kudos to
I didn't think they were particularly great. I didn't think they were as bad as week 1. I said in the middle.
It's hard to be as bad as you were week 1.
Yeah, I mean, I said in the middle of the game that they're a problem and not in the good way, and it kind of got some traction online. That's 2 weeks in a row where I really honestly didn't feel like they played that great yesterday. I mean, you can flame me for that. I didn't think they were. I thought they were average. I'm not saying they were bad. I'm not saying they were great. I thought they were average.
Yeah, I mean, PJ coming in saying Spencer Brown is definitely going to take Darrell Williams' job. He doesn't step it up. Like I said, and that was one of the issues too that I've had. There was a lot of people bugging on Twitter yesterday about Josh Allen, the offense's performance. And one of the things I wanted to say to them was just like, look, we were on this show last week, right? And we had a huge issue. I literally sat here and just talked shit to John Feliciano, like call him a shitty player for like 20 straight minutes. But in that ranting and rambling and all that shit, I also said, you got to give it a month. And we also sat here and we contemplated, hey, what we could do to fix the offensive line. We tried to find a solution. We preached patience, and then we looked for a solution. The people I see online complaining about Josh Allen, I don't see much of patience. Patience saying, well, if it's still like this 3 weeks from now. I don't see a lot of that. I see a lot of this is fucking hot garbage. I can't believe we wasted $250. No, okay. If 3 weeks from now it's still like this, I'm going to start to be concerned. Should be, in my opinion, the rhetoric out. And unless you have a solution for how to fix it, unless you have a solution for what this offense should do, and there are some people who have solutions. Oh, we need to run the ball more. Oh, we need to run more 11 personnel. Oh, there are people with solutions. But for half these people just bitching and moaning and complaining, they're not really bringing any solutions to the table. They're just bitching, moaning, and complaining, which I don't understand, which is what I love about this show is we come here and we as fans sit here and think about like, hey, what are some solutions to this problem? As for the offensive line, again, I'm preaching patience, but Spencer Brown is the number one guy I want to see off the bench the second that patience runs out. And Ryan Bates is the second guy I want to see the second that patience runs out. But I think we do have some guys on the bench who could play well. But man, just as bad as Josh Allen has been these first couple of games, the offensive line has held us back just as much as Josh Allen has.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I totally agree. And that's why I've said I'm not willing to say, I mean, yes, Devin Singletary had a very long run, but like Moss did a lot of that work on his own. We know his yards per carry were like just over 3, and Singletary's were inflated by that one long run. And I'm not trying to take away from that run because it was a great run, but like we need to also look at the pass blocking wasn't really that great again. Darrell Williams looked like a turnstile again this week, like he did in week 1. So I'm still gonna stick to my sort of patience plan of give him 4 weeks, right? Give him the first quarter of the season. Teddy Roosevelt said, if you complain about a problem without offering a solution, you are just complaining. Well, welcome to Twitter. That's what that's what Twitter is. Earl says we aren't who we are going to be at the moment. Come the Chiefs, I expect the O-line to have gelled and then Allen to be flying. That's a good point. That's a good point there because yeah, I mean, this team could look a lot different in a couple weeks' time. I mean, think about, like you said earlier, Steve, with the Titans and Chiefs games back to back in the kind of the beginning stages of last year, and how really we were not feeling good after that. And then we played that Jets game where we kicked all those field goals, and you're like, okay, like what's going on here? And then they just kind of clicked in gear, and it just took off. So there is history there that will, if you go back and look, and I know said don't look at 2020, but like there is precedent there for this team to get out of a rut. So let's be a little patient.
For sure. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to wrap things up this evening. The second half of the football game is well underway. About 6 minutes left in the third quarter. The Packers are now up on the Detroit Lions 21-17. I know that I have a couple of prop bets. Robert Tonyan just caught a touchdown. If he catches the second one, I win myself $75. And if Jamal Williams scores a touchdown in the second half, I win myself about $20. So I got a couple small little prop bets to make Monday Night Football interesting. Hopefully those of you don't have the same addiction and problem that I do that needs to lose $10 to make a football game interesting. But before we go, one comment that I really did like after the game, they asked Xavier Howard, what was the Miami Dolphins locker room like? And his response, like a funeral. Week 2.
I saw that. That's
week
great.
2. I'll
Brian
tell you
Flores
what. And I was having this conversation with Kevin. Like nothing but respect for the Dolphins, mostly just because of my respect for Kevin. But man, did Brian Flores fuck up this offseason not hiring a real offensive coordinator. I mean, did they really expect? Imagine going through that rebuild. First of all, imagine going through that rebuild and you get Tua, a quarterback that you have to put all this talent around just so he looks average. Like that's got to be deflating. And then that offensive line, like Austin Jackson, Michael Dieter, Robert Hunt, that's a lot of projects along an offensive line and a lot of youth and not a lot of veterans to show that youth how exactly it looks to play offensive line in the National Football League. Playing all rookies on your offensive line, that don't work. That don't fly. You need a mix of young guys and veterans on your offensive line for it to work. So, man, I kind of feel a little bad for Dolphins fans right now. I mean,
I don't.
I
I
mean,
mean,
I shouldn't, but I feel bad for Kevin. I feel bad for Kevin.
I do, because Kevin is Kevin is very reasonable, I would say.
Mhm.
I mean, he's in a sea of Bills fans. He's the one
Yeah.
Dolphins fan, right? I mean, he hears us every day talking about it, and he said, he was like, I think the Bills are going to blow out the Dolphins. Now, that sounds a lot like how I talked when the Bills were
Mhm.
bad. I was like, oh, every team's going to blow us out. And if we won, great. And it would just be a nice feeling. But like, he legitimately had reasonings behind why he thought the Bills were going to blow out the Dolphins, and it happened. And
Mhm.
so I feel bad for Kev, but I don't feel bad for Miami and the Dolphins fans in general. Sorry, don't feel
Yeah.
bad for you.
Before we go, we're gonna have our Thursday preview show where we're gonna preview the Washington football team. I had a tweet today with my early predictions for the game. Let me see if I pull it up because I was a real wordsmith with my this morning. What was did I do it on? I apologize. I spoke on your behalf and I posted this on the Air Raid Hour Twitter
Oh,
account.
that's okay.
I
That's
probably
okay.
should have done it under my personal one, especially with the language I used. But my early prediction for the Bills and Washington football team, we'll definitely go deeper dive into it on Thursday night. But where is it? My early read on Washington. If Allen gets time, he can shred that secondary. But fuck, the line of scrimmage is going to be scary with some of the talent they have along the lines. And the
4
Buffalo
first
Bills
rounders.
defense is going to rip one read Tyler Haneke a new asshole. Ooh. Tua thought he was in trouble.
You didn't hold anything back, eh?
I watched that Thursday night football game, and everyone was climbing up Tyler Heineke's ass. Oh my God, Washington, they found themselves a quarterback. Dude was literally looking at one guy the
Hope Zach
entire
Vaughn's not
time.
listening right now.
He literally was staring down one receiver the entire football game. If our game plan for Tua was make him go look for his second read, oh, I feel bad for Tyler Heineke. He's not even going to get to his first read. Like, it's going to be pretty brutal. I expect the Buffalo Bills to have a quality game plan for that Washington football team. I think Scott Turner is a more competent offensive play caller than Eric Studesville. And the other guy that they got there in Miami who's actually calling the plays, I'm blanking on his name, comes from a Bill O'Brien chief. Surprise, incompetent. But if you can shut down Antonio Gibson for the Washington football team and take Terry McLaurin out, double up on Terry McLaurin, I'm not worried about this Washington offense. I think the Buffalo Bills are going to handle them, especially if they come in with that similar game plan they did in that Washington game. But yeah, that defense is something I'm worried about. But they didn't get any pressure on Daniel Jones, and Daniel Jones carved him up. So if Daniel Jones can carve him up, here's the hope.
Well, Daniel Jones did. He ran quite a bit against
Mm-hmm.
them. So could we see a breakout Josh Allen running effort maybe in this one?
Yeah.
We'll see.
Both of our next two teams are coming off a Thursday night game. We're not going to get to see Ty God either. We're going to see Davis Mills. That should be another fun one for the Buffalo Bills defense. All right, ladies and gentlemen, go enjoy the second half of that football game. If you care about me at all, pray that Jamal Williams scores a touchdown and Robert Tonyan scores a second touchdown so I can win myself some money. And until next time, go Bills.
Go Bills.